Growing up, I was the classic overachiever, the one with straight A's, the athlete excelling in track, cheer, and soccer. My future seemed bright, and I thought I had it all mapped out. I wanted to go to a big college, become a nurse like my Nana, and hopefully retire my mom one day. She was a single mom raising what we like to call Irish triplets, me and a set of twins born in the same year. I know, she's crazy. We were inseparable, but as close as we were, nothing could have prepared us for what happened when I was 15. A car accident left me fighting for my life, and when I recovered, the dreams that I had were suddenly out of reach. No more sports, my grades were slipping, and the identity I had built for myself began to crumble. In the midst of that loss, I turned to partying. It was an escape, a way to fill the void that had opened up inside of me. But one night, after a party, I found myself facing a reality I hadn't expected, my first unplanned pregnancy. I was just a teenager, and the weight of that news crushed me. Telling my mom was one of the hardest things I had ever done. I was scared and ashamed. But in that moment, she shared something with me that I didn't know. Her story of having multiple abortions. She told me that whatever I chose, she would support me. So we went to the only place we knew to go, Planned Parenthood. There, I got a positive pregnancy test and a pamphlet about abortion. That was all they gave me, no hope, no alternatives, just a cold clinical option that left me feeling even more alone. The car ride home was silent. Later that night, my sisters came into the room and told me that if I had an abortion, they wouldn't speak to me again. I was shocked and even more overwhelmed than I was before. They promised me that they would be by my side every step of the way. They promised me that I wouldn't be in this alone and that we would explore motherhood together like we did everything else in life. Have you ever watched the movie 3 Men and a Baby? That was us. We would all take turns staying up at night with my son, Easton. They would miss parties and pep rallies and even Friday night lights. And if you know anything about Texas, that's a really big deal. Fast forward to 3 years later, life took another unexpected turn. I was on my first college spring break trip, trying to feel like a normal young girl, when I found myself in a situation I never wanted to be in again. Alone, intoxicated, and taken advantage of. I ended up facing another unplanned pregnancy. But this time, I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want to admit that I had found myself there again. I immediately booked an appointment with an abortion clinic in Dallas. Feeling more ashamed and lost than ever, I was ready to end it, to just make the problem go away. I felt the stairs as I walked into the abortion clinic with my 3-year-old son on my hip. I walked slowly to the front desk with my head held low to start a process I'm so grateful I never finished. My innocent son played happily as we sat in silence. Every time the bell on the top of the door jingled, the silence would break and the whole room would readjust, and everyone would sit a little lower in their chairs, knowing we were all there for the wrong reasons. My name was called, and in front of the whole room, they made my pregnancy scare a reality. "I'm gonna kill myself," I said out loud. And the woman behind the counter giggled and said, "Oh, don't worry, honey, we'll take care of you." She handed me a paper confirming my pregnancy, and I left. I buckled my son into his car seat, tears rolling down my face. As I drove away, I found myself pondering a thought I never considered before. I still don't know where this thought came from, but I thought, can I still go to heaven if I get an abortion? Something inside of me wouldn't let that thought go, so I reached out to a woman I barely knew, someone I had met at church a few weeks before, and asked her that question that had been weighing on my heart. And although I had only gone to church a handful of times and wasn't sure if there was a God, I figured I should at least secure make sure my spot was secured in heaven if there was one. She responded with compassion, sharing the gospel with me and introducing me to the idea of adoption. At first, I was offended. Adoption was an absurd concept to me. I wasn't going to place my child into foster care, I thought. I wasn't a bad mom. I just wasn't able and ready to raise another child alone. I had my family, but community was nothing without financial resources. She pleaded with me to not make any sudden decisions. After a lot of conversations, I decided to reach out to an agency and understand more about the process. To my surprise, adoption was not just limited to foster care. After looking through over 40 profile books of prospective adoptive families, I was connected with a sweet couple, Allie and Ryan. I only had a few weeks left in my pregnancy, so we spent the next few weeks getting to know each other. On November 29th, 2017, I signed papers releasing the parental rights to my newborn son, Everett. Just 48 hours before, I had walked in with my son in my belly and was now walking out alone. Those hours were filled with confusion and overwhelming peace that would come and go, lots and lots of hugs and goodbye kisses. I didn't want to leave him knowing I would never see him again, but for reasons too numerous to list that would take too long to explain, I knew I made the right choice. Even though my heart ached, I said my final goodbye as I was reminded of how grateful I was that I walked out of that abortion clinic. That just one person was brave enough to mention adoption. November 29th was not the last time I got to see my son, though. I reached out asking for what my heart had always wanted but was in denial about the whole time. I needed to know that he was okay. Allie and Ryan were thankfully overjoyed to hear this news. We spent the next few months building a healthy relationship. The first year was hard for me, filled with lots of highs and lows, but the walls did not run away from hard things. They reminded me of how much they loved me and were proud of me for choosing life. My love for Allie and Ryan has only grown. I have learned so much for them. Over time, the relationship with his adoptive parents, Allie and Ryan, grew into something I never expected. Their resources became my resources. Their community became my community. Not only did they completely change my life for the better, but we became a family. We started to spend holidays together, trick-or-treating, carving pumpkins, cheering the boys on at their Little League games, and I would even babysit for them so they could have a date night, celebrating birthdays together. The boys have grown up knowing they are brothers, and they have the sweetest relationship. I share this story with you today because there are so many misconceptions about expectant moms and birth mothers. We are not the stereotypes you might imagine. We're not all homeless or addicted to drugs, and even if some of us face those struggles, we are so much more than our circumstances. There's a woman like me underneath all the challenges she's going through. My story isn't just about me. It's about the thousands of women out there who need support, resources, and to know all of their options. I often think about how different my life might have been if I had known more about adoption during my first pregnancy. And today, because someone told me about adoption, because the walls didn't leave me behind, because of my sweet husband, Travis, who didn't judge me for my past, and because of each of you, I can stand now before you as a wife, a mother, a business owner, and a woman who has built a successful life despite the challenges I faced. A recovering overachiever, surrounded by people who never let me give up on my dreams. Thank you for listening, and thank you for the work that you do to protect and honor life. Thank you for taking the time away from your families to spend time fighting for mine. And thank you for fighting for women like me.